Tonight on The Buzz, we continue our look at new announcements from IBC. We start with NewTek. Brian Olson is the VP of Product Management for NewTek and shares their latest announcements about new live production technology. Then Michael Ashman, the Marketing Director for SmallHD, joins us to discuss their news on new camera monitors. Next, Bob Boster, CEO of Clearcom, explains their latest announcements along with the role IP is playing in improving communications during production. Next, Sam Bogoch, CEO of Axle.ai, highlights their newest product along with changes in the Axle Media Asset Management System. All this plus James DeRuvo with our weekly doddleNEWS update. The Buzz starts now.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
authoritative.
one show serves a worldwide network of media professionals.
Current.
Uniting industry experts,
Production.
filmmakers,
Post-production.
and content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
Welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for the creative content industry, covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. Hi, my name is Larry Jordan. This week, we continue examining new products that were introduced or launched at IBC this year. In these interviews, I'm not only interested in learning about what was announced, but also why the company decided to create it in the first place. As you'll see, new trends include greater flexibility, more wireless support, and new ways to work together. Before we start, though, I want to invite you to subscribe to our free weekly show newsletter at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Every issue every week provides quick links to the different segments on the show, plus articles of interest to filmmakers. Best of all, it's free and comes out every Saturday morning. And now it's time for our doddleNEWS update with James DeRuvo. Hello, James.
Happy Thursday, Larry.
A wonderful Thursday and the last Thursday in September to you. How you doing today?
God, it's like October already.
Well, let's get into the last news for September. What's our lead story?
Well, the big news is that Panasonic has officially announced their S1R and S1 full-frame mirrorless cameras. Notice I said two models. The S1R is the pro-level model with a 47-megapixel Super 35mm image sensor. And then there's the entry-level S1 with a 24-megapixel Super 35mm image sensor. Both models are essentially the same otherwise. They can shoot 4K 60p straight out of the box. They have dual image stabilization for both the lenses and the camera itself. And an interesting thing that'll make Jared Polin happy, dual card slots with an XQD and SD slot for recording, and a 51.6mm Leica L mount lens mount.
That's very cool. What are your thoughts about the camera?
Well, looking at Panasonic's entry into the full-frame mirrorless war, it seems to me that the company is not only safe in its spot as the number 2 mirrorless camera in the business, but it's set to challenge Sony for the top spot. The camera shoots 4K 60 right out of the box, and that imaging from the entire sensor with no crop in 4K, this is a serious cinematic mirrorless camera, whether you're using the higher end or the entry level.
All right. Well, that's Panasonic for the lead. What's your second story?
Well, my second story is a combination of two stories because it has to do with media cards. Arri has announced they're teaming up with European media card maker Angelbird to create a custom-built CFast 2 media card for the Arri Alexa Mini and Amira Cinema cameras. And ProGrade Digital has announced a V60 microSD XC media card with reading speeds approaching 200 megabytes per second and writing speeds almost at 100.
So what are your key takeaways here?
Two things stand out to me. First off, more camera companies are getting into designing their own media cards in order to maximize the performance and the security of recording by making them match up with the circuitry that they use in the camera itself. I also find it amazing that ProGrade Digital is still not interested in supporting the XQD format, which is starting to gain ground with camera makers now that Panasonic is deploying it. Considering their Lexar pedigree, it's just astounding to me.
James, what other stories are you following this week?
Well, other stories we're following. Apple outlines the best GPUs to put in your older Mac Pro towers in order to upgrade to Mac OS Mojave. Steven Soderbergh has sold his second iPhone feature to Netflix. And if you're tempted to buy a new full-frame mirrorless camera, we have 9 things you might want to consider. That's what we're working on. What's tonight's show about?
Tonight's show is all about exciting new toys. We're talking with NewTek and SmallHD, Clearcom and Axle Video about their announcements from IBC.
Well, you know how much I like a good toy, especially when you can use it to make a movie.
Absolutely correct. James, where can we go on the web to follow these and all your other stories?
All these stories and more can be found at doddleNEWS.com.
And James DeRuvo is the editor-in-chief, Doddle News, and joins us every week. I'll see you next Thursday.
Have a good weekend.
Here's another website I want to introduce you to, doddleNEWS.com. Doddle News gives you a portal into the broadcast, video, and film industries. It's a leading online resource presenting news, reviews, and products for the film and video industry. Doddle News also offers a resource guide and crew management platform specifically designed for production. These digital call sheets, along with their app, directory, and premium listings, provide in-depth organizational tools for busy production professionals. Doddle News is a part of the Thalo Arts community, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. From photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between, Thalo is filled with resources you need to succeed. Whether you want the latest industry news, need to network with other creative professionals, or require state-of-the-art online tools to manage your next project, there's only one place to go, doddleNEWS.com. Brian Olson is the Vice President of Product Management for NewTek. He joined the company in 2016 to lead strategic development of new and existing product lines that have transformed the video industry. Hello, Brian. Welcome.
Hi, Larry. Thanks for having me.
Tonight, we're looking at new products that NewTek announced at IBC. But before we begin that conversation, NewTek has evolved a great deal since it first started. How would you describe the company today?
When I talk to people who haven't known about NewTek or haven't known about NewTek within the last 2 or 3 years, I kind of have to take them from square one up to where we are today. But the company's 33 years old and has really, throughout its history, focused on live production systems for storytellers, basically a lot of independent producers, videographers, people that wanted to tell their stories outside of a typical television station or large production company type environment. And so we've been known for having cost-effective live production systems. But in the past 2 to 3 years, we've been moving up market quite a bit and starting to deal with top-tier broadcasters. And a lot of this was brought about by NDI, which is NewTek's IP video protocol that was launched 3 years ago at IBC. And that's definitely one of the headlines of IBC this year, is the 3rd anniversary of NDI. To be humble here, the adoption of NDI has really exceeded our expectations by a factor of 10. We've got currently about 1,000 companies that are either shipping or developing NDI-enabled products. It's really enabled the industry to create an ecosystem where you can have NDI and products all the way from OBS, which is a free streaming product, all the way up to a company like VizRT that does real-time broadcast graphic.
Tell me what NDI is. I've heard the letters, but I don't know what it does.
It stands for Network Device Interface, and it's a software-based IP video protocol that's free to any manufacturers or companies that want to incorporate it into their products. But it's designed to be plug and play without configuration. You just plug devices into a standard network. They all discover each other, connect to each other. So we like to say zero config from an end user perspective, and it allows you to transfer video over IP, over standard networks. And we can go all the way up to 4K UHD video as well. So it's really allows producers to be able to connect to different devices, different software in their production workflows very simply and easily without lots of cables and the traditional SDI routers and all the infrastructure that's typically associated with connecting multiple products.
Would NDI be similar in the video world to Dante in the audio world?
I think you nailed it 100%. I actually use that analogy myself. Very similar in their approaches and making audio simpler for people. And our goal was to make video connectivity simpler. And we actually support Dante now in our products. So you can get up to 64 channels of Dante audio in and out of our products, which really opens up the whole world of audio processing and audio mixing in conjunction with NewTek products to our customers.
One of the things that I do want to find out about is what you announced at IBC. So let's shift from where you are to what the new stuff is. What have you got?
We're getting ready to ship, hopefully in the next week or two, our Connect Spark Pro. And this is our first UHD 4K to NDI portable converter. We have an existing line of Connect Spark products that will do up to 1080p 60. The Connect Spark Pro will do basically take HDMI out of a 4K video camera and convert it into NDI right at the camera level. It even has a screw mount to mount on the camera. And then you've got it basically as a network connection available as a source anywhere on the network right from the camera. Or perhaps a gaming console that you plug in that's available to anyone anywhere on the network at that point. So this is the first hardware implementation of NDI, which we talked about earlier in the Spark Pro. And part of our announcement at IBC is that we'll be licensing our hardware implementation of NDI to other manufacturers that want to incorporate it into cameras and monitors and things like that. That's a big step for us because NDI to this point has only been a software-only implementation that required an operating system of some sort, Windows or Mac or Linux. This enables the manufacturers to be able to embed NDI into their chips, into their FPGAs, and make it part of their product. So we're pretty excited about that.
NDI requires it to be built into the device. Connect Spark is a converter that takes an existing camera and converts its signal into an NDI signal?
Correct. The Connect Spark Pro will take an HDMI signal out of a camera or a gaming console or any other device and convert it into NDI.
So we have new Connect Spark Pro, which is announced at IBC, and the celebration of the third anniversary of NDI. What else do you have that's new?
So we're also taking our first steps into subscription by making 6 premium features on our live production systems available via subscription. The flagship functionality or feature would be what we call live graphics, and that's the ability to use Adobe After Effects to create real-time motion graphics. And we can do this with a plugin that we call Live Graphics Creator, which actually allows people that don't really know After Effects very well to create live motion graphics. Then those can be exported, loaded up on either our TriCaster TC1 or VMC1 products, and played back in real time with replaceable text, images, the ability to link live data to those text fields. So really, without buying a third-party traditional real-time CG, you can actually author that content right in After Effects and play it back live on our live production systems. So that's a big one. Also, we've included Live Panel, our browser-based custom control panel builder that lets people create simplified workflows by creating just a handful of buttons to do complex production tasks. Also, I already mentioned the advanced audio capability using either Dante or AES-67. 64 channels is available with premium access. This one is a particularly popular feature, what we call NDI KVM, and that's the ability to, from any computer, to be able to call up an NDI source of our user interface, click the KVM button, and actually take control of our live production systems and actually be able to switch a show, use your keyboard and mouse, and have low latency multi-viewer and UI feedback from anywhere on the network. So this takes the place of a lot of complex, KVM and expensive KVM devices.
That sounds really cool until I suddenly realize I've got a bunch of masked invaders that are hacking into my network and suddenly running my cameras. How do you deal with security, and how do you reassure very paranoid video production people that their cameras are not going to go astray?
We've got the ability through our NDI access manager, to be able to decide who can see those NDI sources or not. So there's a bit of rights management involved there. So if you're not allowed to take control of a live production system, you're not going to see that NDI source available to you.
Where is that controlled from? Just explain that process just a little bit more.
It's a piece of software that can be anywhere on the network that allows you to sort of subdivide your NDI sources within your facility, basically decide who gets to see what sources. And that way, if you have, we've got customers that have 500, 600, 700 NDI sources. For everybody to be able to, go through their pull down menu and see all those, might be a little daunting. So we can divide that up and decide, okay, you don't get to see those, you don't get to see those. You're not a TD, so you're not going to see any of the user interfaces for the live production systems. But the other thing too with NDI KVM is we also broadcast all of our multi-viewers from our live production systems as NDI sources. So that's really another effective workflow thing when you're trying to put those multi-viewers in different places throughout a facility to be able to see sources for different types of people. Also, we've enabled what we call virtual PTZ on every input as part of premium access. So you're familiar with PTZ cameras and the ability to control those with a joystick and zoom and pan and tilt. Well, we've sort of done the same thing with a virtual camera. So you're able to actually zoom in, pan, set up camera moves, just on a video source itself. It works quite well in HD, but if you imagine having a 4K camera coming into your system and doing an HD show, you can actually zoom all the way into quarter screen, resolution without losing any image quality. And then the last thing associated with premium access is complete access to the NewTek virtual set library. So we've had those online where you could go on and purchase one set at a time. As long as you have your premium access subscription, you get access to all of them. So, find the set that works best for the production that you're doing, and off you go.
As you look back on IBC, now that you've had a week to sort of catch your breath, what trends caught your eye?
Generally, there's a lot more realization that the term broadcaster is vastly expanding with the prevalence of the digital space and people able to create their own channels and stream them. And so the realization by even high-end manufacturers that they need to have simpler UIs, they have to have better price points for the independent producers and the people that want to create their own content and create their own channel, their own brand. So it's a bit of a pivot, I think, even by some of the higher end manufacturers towards a lot of the folks that listen to your show.
Brian, for people that want more information about NDI and ConnectSpark and all the rest of the NewTek products, where can they go on the web?
Just go to www.newtek.com.
That website is NEWTEK, all one word, NEWTEK.com. And Brian Olson is the Vice President of Product Management for NewTek. And Brian, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Larry.
Michael Ashman is the marketing director for SmallHD. He's been with the company for about 3 years. He has a background in freelance videography and cinematography, and his focus is on helping to create the perfect solution for on-set monitoring and content creation. Hello, Michael. Welcome.
Hey, Larry. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to our chat. How would you describe SmallHD?
SmallHD is a company that makes on-camera monitors for the cinematography industry. We're a bunch of content creators, basically, that love the video and cinematography industry. Really, just a bunch of goofballs that decided to create a very nice solution for cinematographers to use on set to really, kind of maximize what it is that they're able to create.
Most cameras have a monitor already. Why is yours necessary?
What you see a lot with on-camera monitors is they're just kind of there out of necessity, just so you can kind of just see what it is that you're getting ready to shoot. They lack a lot of things that we really want to provide to the end user, and that's a larger display so they can see and frame things a little bit better. And we also offer high bright displays, so you can basically see the screen that you're looking at in any type of shooting environment, even in broad sunlight.
Who would you consider a target customer, or would it be better to say that a particular camera that you guys are designed for?
Well, that's really interesting. We were kind of camera agnostic for quite some time with our 702 and 502 lineup. But now we've created a focus monitor, and that has the ability to output power to a small DSLR camera. So really, basically anybody who's trying to develop content and create content, we basically scale all the way from a YouTuber or an indie filmmaker all the way up to the high-end cinematography. The focus is really interesting because of abilities like powering your camera, providing extra daylight viewability, and we just have a nice little mounting solution that lets it go right on top of your DSLR. So we're kind of a little bit all over the place. We were really just trying to create products that help content creators create better content.
All right, let's talk about the new stuff at IBC. What did you announce?
New for IBC, we announced a couple things. The most important thing, or the most exciting thing for us, is we now have monitors with integrated wireless. And so basically we've partnered with Teradek, who were making wireless transmitters and receivers, and that's just for distributing signal on set from a camera to another location, a few hundred feet away from the camera source itself, maybe for like a director's rig or something like that. And so what we saw was a lot of people who had transmitter or receiver, and then they also had a monitor. So they were having to power both of these devices. They were having to send signal to both these devices, and then also trying to figure out how to rig them up together so they would work well together. So what we've done is actually popped a wireless transmitter inside of a monitor, and we've also put a wireless receiver inside of another monitor. So now you have a really integrated system that's really lightweight. You only got one thing to power on set, and you only got one thing to send signal to. So it just makes things a lot more convenient. It makes wireless on set a lot easier to use.
How do you deal with signal interference? Because there's a lot of wireless signals floating around.
Yeah, there is a lot of wireless signals floating around. So basically what we have is inside the monitor, it is basically going to select something off the 5 gigahertz band, which hopefully not a lot of things on set are running with. And then it's going to try to optimize that and try to find the strongest signal available. So it'll swap channels and kind of search around a little bit and try to really make sure that you have the strongest signal you can have on set. That signal is also encrypted, so other people can't potentially hack into your signal, or it kind of helps eliminate interference as well.
What's the cost range on this stuff?
That's a really exciting thing for us. On the new Focus stuff, the MSRP is $1,299. And that's actually about the price of what you would pay for a wireless transmitter or receiver that's just standalone. And so now you can actually have a wireless transmitter receiver with a built-in monitor. You're able to adjust or change channels on the wireless unit via the monitor display. So it just makes things a lot more convenient, and you're not really paying any extra for that convenience.
As you talk with people, your customers, what needs do they have that you're most interested in meeting? One of those that I've heard over the years is your ability to be seen in daylight. The brightness of your monitors for outside shooting is amazing. What other requests are they making of you?
People really want to monitor with LUTs, which are lookup tables on set. A lot of set distribution now, either people are shooting in RAW or they're shooting in log formats. And that's great because they're trying to maximize the dynamic range that they're able to capture. But the problem with those type of formats is that they're really flat, they're really gray, and it makes it really hard to do things like pull focus or judge exposure precisely. So with our monitors, you're actually able to pop on a lookup table to make it look more like what Rec 709 footage would look like, or with any .cube file that you want to upload, you can make it look like however it is that you're normally processing that footage. So now when you're on set, you're able to actually see that LUT and make decisions based on that instead of looking at log footage, which is much harder to do things like pull focus on or, again, to judge color of a scene.
How do you get LUTs into a SmallHD monitor?
You'd use a standard full-size SD card. You would upload your LUTs onto that file from, I'm presuming, like a computer or a device like that. And then you take that card and you pop it into your SmallHD monitor. And then you would just access it in our toolbar. We have a LUTs menu there where you could load anything from that SD card right onto the monitor and apply it to the display.
Would that include saving monitor settings as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You can actually save monitor settings. Depending on how you want to set up your monitor, if you have custom tools overlaid, LUTs, or some specific features, you can save your profile onto an SD card. And that way, if you're like renting monitors or you're going in between monitors, you could easily just upload the profile that onto a brand new monitor.
And you mentioned this very quickly in passing. I just wanted to reinforce. You support the cube format, which is a very popular lookup table.
Yeah, it's pretty much kind of like a universal blanket right now with the .cube files. With the LUTs, yep, so we support that. We have SD card slots on all of our monitors. And so you're able to take any of those creative LUTs that you normally use and upload those onto our monitors and view them real time on set.
You just got back from IBC and are slowly catching up on your rest. But at the show itself, what trends did you see that caught your attention?
The trends that caught my attention is honestly, it's wireless. I think that people are trying to figure out just easier ways to connect to things on set, have multiple people be able to view what the actual camera operator's seeing, people such as like makeup artists or even like lighting technicians. So everybody's basically connected more real time to what's going on set, and everybody's able to make more informed decisions. So we were kind of like right on the money with the Focus Bolt products that we made with the integrated wireless. Because of the lightweight and compact form factor, it just makes it a lot more accessible and easy to use. So we hope to continue to see growth in the wireless segment, and we really think that that's going to be the thing, whether it's providing lookup tables on set distribution-wise wirelessly or just other things in that realm. I think that that's what we're going to continue to see.
For people that want more information about your products, where do they go on the web?
For more information about everything SmallHD, you can always visit us at www.smallhd.com. It's a great resource. We're always putting new stuff on there. We even have a couple blog articles from some content creators and people who are using the product and kind of their experiences. So it's a great place to not only shop for products, but to learn more about them.
That website is all one word, SmallHD, smallhd.com, and Michael Ashman is the marketing director for SmallHD. And Michael, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Larry. It's been great.
Bob Boster began his career in community theater at the age of 7. Since then, he expanded into key backstage roles in live theater, rock and roll sound engineering, and mobile TV production. Today, Bob is president of Clearcom, helping all those different groups communicate. Hello, Bob. Welcome.
Hi, Larry.
Before we talk about your IBC announcements, which is what we're focusing on in this show, give us a quick description of what Clearcom does.
Clearcom lets people talk to each other to coordinate some kind of activity that is their primary job. In television, that normally is people working around the camera and some kind of image that they're trying to capture, sometimes talent, sometimes not. So a director can speak to camera people, can speak to talent in their ear, can speak to graphics operators and audio mixing people, all within some kind of controlled environment so that they can coordinate their activities. But we do the same kinds of things for a lot of other markets, as you mentioned, theater, but many other applications as well where people need to talk to each other.
For instance, what are typical markets?
I think our big ones that are other than the two main ones we've generally are known for in live activity production like theater or opera or ballet or concerts or that kind of stuff, and broadcasting. The other main ones would be theme parks to communicate, for people to communicate in the operation of the theme parks, replay and other kinds of assistance of the operation of sporting events. So people may or may not know that we're the replay system for Major League Baseball. We're the replay system for the National Hockey League. We do that kind of coordination of sporting events for a variety of other kinds of events, including this past year at the Winter Olympics in Pyongyang. We also do a lot in marine and offshore industrial applications like oil exploration, cable laying, and other kinds of things like that where people need to talk to each other on board working ships. So we have an interesting little niche there. We do some business in medical. And then one of the very interesting ones, which is not wildly different than broadcast, but as you may know, there's a lot of production activity associated with corporate events. So corporate audiovisual teams very often have sort of a hybrid of broadcasting because they're connecting multiple sites together using cameras and closely miking people, but also sort of in-room production and presentation. So it's a sort of a hybrid of broadcast and live event production, and we do quite a bit of business in that space also.
I knew you were in other markets, but I'd never asked you before what they were. That's fascinating. Okay, let's switch gears. Let's put our media hat back on again. What announcements did you make at IBC?
The main focus for us and the market in general has been moving towards IP and IP as a platform for communication of a variety of signals.
Let me interrupt. Why is moving to IP so important?
Well, I think there's a variety of reasons. But first of all, let me say that I understand that a chunk of this is hype, right? So while I'm happy to promote our activities in that area, and I know plenty of our users are taking advantage of our capabilities in those areas, it's also one of these things where people are just sort of jumping on board something that appears to be moving in a direction that they can see some fragments of benefit there, but they're not 100% sure what they are yet. Generally, the applications for IP fall into two categories. One is cable replacement. So copper can be expensive to run, especially when you're talking about running coax for video. Fiber is an available alternative, but also not necessarily prevalent, and people think that it's more expensive from an installation and termination standpoint in some instances than running Cat5. That could be forming an IP network that would allow you to have one IP network that services a variety of broadcast activities. So video transport, audio transport, moving things around in terms of file transfer from production suites and that kind of thing, and then also intercom. So there is an obvious sort of benefit to that kind of cable replacement in a fixed installation-based environment. The other extended piece is extending out of the studio or extending out of the facility. So if you take the next step into transmitting from site to site or over the World Wide Web in some regard, you also have benefits there where if you have a field team, let's say doing a stand-up shot somewhere at a other location that you want to mix in live or something like that, being able to connect to them over IP, taking advantage of the connectivity that's available very inexpensively in many instances, either over 3G, 4G, LTE, or over Wi-Fi through the internet. These kinds of technologies extend communication protocol outside of the studio and into the rest of the world. And so we have IP applications in both areas and support both of those activities. And that's an important part of where we're headed, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people need to run out and throw away all their existing kit because everything's going IP. We still work in our traditional fashion as well. As you mentioned, I first wore a belt pack many, many years ago backstage, and that belt pack is still compatible with existing products that we support today.
Which gets me back to my first question was, now that I understand much better what IP is and what it can do, what were your new products?
Big things that we announced at IBC are our EIPA card, which stands for IP audio. It's a high-density card that goes into our matrix frame and allows for AES 67 protocol audio and communication to pass across the system to other things, as well as working on other protocols. AES 67 works great for a sort of a internal cabled environment, working over a network in-house. It's not necessarily the solution for transmitting across the internet. So the EIPA card can work in a variety of protocols that allows it to be, let's say, LAN compatible, WAN compatible, or even internet compatible. So this is a high density card that lets somebody put a lot of connections in and out of their matrix frame, and those connections can go to panels They can go to mobile users, people using our mobile client on either their phone or an iPad. It can go to transceivers for our FreeSpeak 2 wireless system. It can go to our LQ box, which is sort of a throw-down interface box that can connect to any location in the world over IP from intercom to intercom. The eIPA card is the highest density card in the marketplace. It's a technological advancement for us because it's our first foray into conforming to AES-67 as a subset of the SMPTE 2110-30 media over IP standard. That's a whole mouthful there to say.
So the eIPA card was your only new announcement?
No, but it's sort of the core piece of that. So also going with that, I mentioned the FreeSpeak 2 system has the ability to have a transceiver attach over IP to the eIPA card. That transceiver is also new. It's called the IPT for IP transceiver, and that supports existing 1.9 formatted FreeSpeak 2 belt packs. So if somebody has some existing wireless from us and they wanted to add some IP transceivers into the system, that's now possible with the eIPA card and the IPT. But the last big piece, and this was the newest announcement, in fact, we would call it more of a technology preview than a proper launch because it'll be a little bit later in the year until we're shipping. We also launched a new variation of our V-Series panels called the Iris panels. Iris for their color displays, because this is our first time we've had color as our display technology on our Matrix intercom panels. But also those panels have interconnection to the eIPA card, which allows for people to then take advantage of that very high density port count in the card straight through to their panel. So the workflow is very similar, almost identical to our existing V-Series panels, but adds both the AES-67 capacity and color displays, which updates them nicely. So those are probably the big pieces of what we announced at the show. There's some little things around the edges that are also interesting to talk about. Like there's a client for the Apple Watch that goes to our IP intercom that works on Apple mobile devices like phones and iPads. Now, if you wanted to have that that communication show up on your watch, so you could use your watch as your control point and you didn't have to pull your phone up every time somebody called you, we launched that at the IBC show. So there's a few little pieces around the edge like that, but the bigger pieces are the things I started with.
I can see everybody backstage talking to the wrist. That's a very cool idea.
Yep, absolutely.
One of the challenges you have is that a lot of your customers are very big, but what do you have for smaller work groups?
Sure. So I think the biggest thing, and this is something I had really drawn for me in terms of an illustration at IBC in such a great way that I think will be interesting to your listeners is, as I mentioned before, our LQ interface devices, which allows for connection of intercom, and really could be anybody's flavor of intercom, ours or our competitors, to interconnect over IP. For instance, if you had a studio shoot going on, but you wanted to also include some people, communications for some people who are out in the parking lot or doing a stand-up somewhere outside of your range of your normal cable length, the LQ box lets you connect those things over IP, and that IP connection could be over the internet grade connection, or it could be on a local network grade connection. So that's pretty cool. But one of the great things that we've introduced in the last year and a half is that our mobile client, which I was just mentioning in regards to our Apple Watch, now can be supported by that LQ box. So the interface into your intercom system is also effectively like a mini server for your own in-house mobile device-based intercom, which has all the regular features of intercom with latching on a talk, call and listen. You can sort of work with the system as an IFB if you like. All of those capabilities are built into the system. And that LQ box can be a very affordable 2-channel throwdown box that attaches to your existing small intercom and lets you add up to 8 mobile users using their own existing mobile devices. So there's no hardware charge for them to extend their existing intercom platform into something that can really broaden the work group out beyond the domain of just what they can handle in terms of regular cable runs.
Very exciting stuff. For people that want to learn more about the products that ClearCom offers, where can they go on the web?
please come see us at www.clearcom.com.
That's all one word, CLEARCOM, clearcom.com. And Bob Boster is the president of Clearcom. And Bob, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Larry.
I want to introduce you to a new website, Thalo.com. Thalo is an artist community and networking site for creative people to connect, be inspired, and showcase their creativity. Thalo.com features content from around the world with a global perspective on all things creative. Thalo is the place for creative folks to learn, collaborate, market, and sell their works. Thalo is a part of Thalo Arts, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. From photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between, Thalo is filled with the resources you need to succeed. Visit Thalo.com and discover how their community can help you connect, learn, and succeed. That's Thalo.com. Sam Bogoch is the CEO of Axle Video, which has developed a new approachable system for asset management called Axle. Hello, Sam. Welcome.
Good to be back. Hi there.
It is always good to hear your voice. Before we get to the news from IBC, give us a quick description of what Axle Video is up to these days.
Sure. Well, the two biggest things are, first of all, that we have actually completed a rebranding, so we're focusing on the AI aspects of our offerings. We have over 500 sites installed now, and the product is actually now called Axle.ai going forward. Lots to talk about in the artificial intelligence space. The other big news is that we rolled out at IBC a new product called Connector that lets you build custom workflows very easily and at low cost.
Well, we'll hold Connector for just a minute. Why the rebranding on Axle.ai and the focus on artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so it just seems to us that historically media management has been a little bit like doing your laundry. It's been one of these chores that no one really gets very excited about because at the end of the day, it's work. and nobody wants to do more work. You can say, "Oh, we make it so much more entertaining to do your laundry." Well, in reality, doing your laundry is still a chore. So, what's cool about AI is it offers the possibility of transforming that chore into something that just happens automatically. In other words, you can get all of the metadata about what you're doing, whether it's face recognition, object recognition, speech to text. All of this metadata just kind of flows into what you're doing without, having to hire a squad of interns to enter it for you. That's a big deal.
Well, no, it is a big deal. So did you announce new AI with Axle at IBC?
We did indeed. So the two big things we announced were object recognition built in. So we have core capabilities now within the Axle software of doing object recognition. And second of all, that we have an integration with a company called Speechmatics that does very sophisticated speech-to-text for both English and several dozen other languages. They even handle things like English dialects like Australian English or, Welsh English and things like that. So
Boston English?
Very powerful stuff. I don't know, actually. I didn't see Boston listed, so we might have a gap there.
Well, what does it mean when you say that there's object recognition?
Yeah, so you can recognize, for instance, if there's a building in the video clip, or if there's a car, if there's a lamppost, things like that. So basic objects that can be, or trees, for instance. And it's just an easy way to, if you're trying to find a clip months or years later, say, there were two people and there was a tree. this system should be able to help you identify those. It won't be 100% accurate, but what it will do is give you a head start in terms of finding stuff. And typically our customers will have thousands or even tens of thousands of hours of footage, which it's not even economic really to have people tag it all, particularly if it's the raw footage coming in from the cameras, which is most often the case. Finished footage people can afford to have tagged, but very rarely is it justifiable to tag all that raw footage.
Do we need to train the system to recognize the cars or the trees?
Well, a certain amount of it comes built in, and then sort of enhancements happen with training. Now, we already support 4 or 5 different AI engines, and each one has kind of different guidelines as to how much training you have to do. The big push for the on-premise capability is that a lot of our customers who've been using, say, the Microsoft AI engine or the Google AI engine in the cloud have been running into the fact that Microsoft and Google want to charge you per hour of footage processed. So it would be really nice if you could just pay a flat rate per month and know that it could handle as much footage as you could throw at it. Right now, that's only possible with on-premise systems.
Well, it sounds, from the way you describe it, that Axle is moving away from the smaller work group and toward the larger work group. Does this mean that media management is going to be reserved for the larger groups?
Oh, I would say not. We still have an entry price that's like super affordable, down around $2,000. The challenge is that many of the smaller groups are still doing, I would say, sneakernet style workflows where they're capturing the video, filling up a hard drive, unplugging that hard drive and filling up another hard drive. And what we've learned in the last 6 years is our original intent was to target like wedding videographers and freelancers. And it turns out that many of those people are just getting to shared storage now, and that it's a slightly larger group, as you point out. It's something from 3 to, say, 30 people. That's really more the sweet spot for our product. That's not to say that the smaller teams don't need media management, but we're still figuring out the right way to deliver that in a sensible way for that market.
So basically the entry point is where the work is stored on a server, because you need to be able to access it from a server rather than a whole bunch of locally attached hard disks.
Correct. I mean, our software can be used with locally attached hard disks, but that's not its best use, I would say.
Well, thinking of the fact that you announced new stuff for Axle at IBC, you also announced a new product that I saw splashed across your website called Connector. What's this?
Yeah. So in the course of doing these, many media management sites, there's a lot of sort of call for customization. And traditional MAM companies have addressed that by building out a professional services business that often eclipses their product. It's actually not a healthy thing in many cases because you spend all your time doing custom work and the core product can suffer. So what we've decided to do is stick with the core product, stick with keeping it clean, but then offer a tool set that is also very affordable, starts at $1,200, and you can build custom workflows. In a lot of ways, it's similar to what you could already do with, say, Telestream Vantage or a Sparrow Orchestrator, but those come tied to products that cost tens of thousands of dollars and are not available on their own. So there's I think, a very clear need across the industries. There's so many good ingest tools, archiving tools, transcoding, file movement tools, and we've already got some integrations with people like File Catalyst, with Archiware, with Tools on Air, a bunch of different interesting connection points for Connector. And what we want to do is build it out so that over the next 6 to 12 months, we could get up to potentially dozens of third parties all providing modules for this.
Well, it sounds like this could be a really good boost to your own internal development, as rather than have a whole bunch of custom code you've got to change. You've got this Tinker Toy thing to where you build it by blocks.
Exactly, and we waited for other people to do it, and in the end, we kind of had to do it ourselves. But yes, that's exactly right, because the last thing I want is to have our core team of development engineers pulled into every new customer project that comes down the road. And we have been pretty good at maintaining that product focus. But again, it would be great to have a tool like this. And in my conversations at IBC and NAB, we heard from many, many vendors that all feel the same way. It's like all the smaller, interesting vendors are cut off from the bigger platforms like, say, Avid or Belden or VizRT. Those guys are able to provide all the integration among their own products, but you have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it. What if you could get that kind of integration from independent best-of-breed companies like us and like some of the other folks I mentioned? That's really the goal of Connector.
And have you announced a ship date?
Yes, 30 days out. So we'll be shipping in late October.
Very cool. Price of around $1,200, you say?
Well, there are different versions. There's a laptop version, a workgroup version, and an enterprise version. And the price ranges from $1,200 to $12,000, depending on how big the deployment is.
Where do you think the interest is coming from of those three groups?
Initially, the smaller ones, but I will tell you that we had a number of big enterprise customers. We already have customers that are, very significant names in the broadcast industry, and many of them are excited about this. But the other extreme is, the DITs, the freelancers, the consultants that need to go into a shop and put together a workflow. They don't want to leave an undocumented piece of code behind. They want to leave something that a customer can click on and kind of see how it works, and maybe, if it's a watch folder, change it from polling every 5 minutes to every 2 minutes without the consultant having to come back and rewrite the code. And Connector lets you do that.
Sounds like you could develop a freelance group of developers that are doing all your code for you.
We would hope so, and we hope to see some of the smarter integrators and consultants out there. Based on what we've heard, it looks very good that there'll be interest and activity around it.
You've sensed we've only got a little bit of time left, but one quick question.
Yep.
You've said you rebranded in terms of machine learning, the AI, Axle.ai. Is AI still a thing, or is it now so integrated that nobody talks about it anymore?
Well, interesting you should ask. It is potentially integrated. The reality is that 1% or fewer of the customers out there have really taken any advantage of AI. So I think the buzzword is well entrenched, but the reality is still still to come over the next couple of years. So we're still figuring out really how the industry is best going to use AI. But yes, the buzzword is definitely ubiquitous these days.
And for people that want to keep track of what you're doing with AI, where can they go on the web?
Yeah, it's www.axle.ai.
That's axle.ai, and Sam Bogoch is the CEO of Axle.ai. And Sam, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. I was just thinking, it's always interesting to learn about new products, but what I find even more interesting is in learning why these products needed to be developed, what trends are happening in the market that makes them necessary. NewTek has exploded from its initial roots with the video toaster 33 years ago. Back then, the idea of digital video was almost laughable. Today, we act as though it's been with us forever. From smaller production houses, NewTek is now providing hardware and services to the most demanding broadcast operation. Or SmallHD's interest in developing camera monitors that can be viewed in daylight. It seems like a simple thing, but monitors just weren't bright enough to compete with sunlight until SmallHD figured out a way. Or Clearcom expanding far beyond its initial base of broadcast into sports replay systems, undersea cable laying, and ballet. Before our interview, I was talking with Bob Boster about my first experience with Clearcom at WHA Television in Madison, Wisconsin, about 3 years after Clearcom was founded. I fell in love with intercoms back then, and they've had a warm spot in my heart ever since. Or Axle Video's goal of helping us find our media when we need it. This very simple mission statement is really, really hard to do, because each project creates so much media that it's hard to analyze without actually watching every frame. While their new Connector product is yet another way to improve workflow and interoperability between all the different gear that we work with on a daily basis. Media today is everywhere, from parents shooting video of their kids to worldwide real-time coverage of news and sports. And the gear that is showcased at IBC is both fascinating and foreshadowing how each of us will earn our living in the future. Just something I'm thinking about. I want to thank our guests this week, Brian Olson with NewTek, Michael Ashman with SmallHD, Bob Boster with Clearcom, Sam Bogoch with Axle Video, and James DeRuvo with doddleNEWS. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find thousands of interviews, all online and all available to you today. And remember to sign up for our free weekly show newsletter that comes out every Saturday morning. Talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner, with additional music provided by smartsound.com. Our producer is Debbie Price. My name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for listening to the Digital Production Buzz. The Digital Production Buzz is copyright 2018 by Thalo LLC.